Hello, class, and it is Dr. Pam. Today is the 7th of October in 2021, and this is Human Behavior class. I'm teaching this week on the adolescent and the social aspect of growing adolescence. So, this HBSE book is like this long. And in many colleges, they divide it up into 2 semesters because there's so much information. But this book is really important because if you don't know what normal human behavior is about, then you definitely don't know what abnormal behavior would look like. So let's go through some things as we'll talk about the social environment of adolescence. You see my lovely people here, okay? So Laura is 19 years old and she's wondering what the future holds for her. She lives with her parents and has a job as a hotel maid where she receives the minimum hourly wage. She has frequent arguments with her mother and both of her parents have encouraged her to get better paying jobs so that she can become self-supportive and move out of the house. She realizes that a minimum wage job will not enable her to live in an apartment, buy clothes, and have money for entertainment. Now, Laura was raised in a middle-class family. Her brother's attending a college to become a minister. Religion has always been an important aspect of Laura's parents, but not of Laura. She detests going to church. Her parents have often called her stupid and negatively compared her to her brother, who believes that he can do no wrong. The disparaging of Laura in many ways has become a self-fulfilling prophecy. She repeated a grade in elementary school, seldom studied, and often received failing grades. In school, in school, she saw herself as a failure and hung out with other students who were failures. In high school, she frequently skipped school and partied. 8 weeks after graduation, she was expelled for skipping school too much, 8 weeks before graduation. Her parents and the system had tried numerous times to motivate Laura to apply herself to school. She had a number of individual sessions with 3 different social workers and even met with psychiatrists. Now, the parents did a whole lot to try to help Laura, right? However, they did give her lots of self-despairing words. So, let's see, Laura's parents are especially irate when she leaves home for 3 or 4 days at a time, parties in abandoned houses in the inner city of Milwaukee, lied to her parents about her sexual activity, when the truth is she's had a variety of partners. Fortunately, she's taken birth control. Some of Larry's male friends are putting pressure on her to become a prostitute so they will have more money to buy drugs and party. Wow. Laura and her friends have several encounters with the police for shoplifting, running away from home, drinking liquor underage, kicking police officers while being arrested, and driving at a high-speed chase after a radar detector they were speeding. Laura is asking herself many questions. Should she be a prostitute and stop associating with these friends to make peace with her parents by getting a high school education and a better paying job? Whenever she's tried to achieve middle-class goals of her parents, they criticize her for being a failure. She wonders what the chances are heading into any right direction. Though she realizes her friends are getting her in trouble with the police, she's worried that cutting ties with her friends will result in living a life in which she'll be continually rejected and put down by others. She wants a better paying job, but realizes her chances are not good, especially because she hasn't completed high school. Let's see here. So she wants a one-on-one relationship with a caring male. She's hoping for, she feels like no males will want her because of her sexual activity. She is increasingly concerned that sexual activity is not right and may result in her acquiring an STD or AIDS, right? So this book is going to look at the perspective this chapter is going to look at the perspective from an adolescent, okay? So the social growth is from puberty to age 19, involves a number of passages. from being dependent on parents, becoming more independent, from adjusting to puberty, all those things that we get to see, right? So let's get into this chapter. Okay. So social development in adolescence. You know, during that time, and if you look back in your own lives, if you have children, the most important thing is what their friends say. Mom could have told this 1,000 times, but if Becky said that's not true, then our kids are going to believe what Becky said. So parents have less and less, they appear to have less and less importance to their children, but in reality, that's not true. As they get older, they definitely will appreciate the advice that you gave them, but not at the age that you're telling them. But they will hold on to that, and those at a time when they're older, they'll definitely appreciate that. So at this point, moving from dependence to independence, right? So if you're having struggles with your 15, 16-year-old, that's normal. That's normal. They're struggling to be adults, and you're struggling not to let go. So it's kind of like, you know, giving them enough space because you want to let them grow. However, you want to keep them safe as well. So that is a lot of that dependence between mothers and daughters and fathers and sons, just definitely. Young people are in conflict of wanting to be independent, like I said. Many people see their parents have shortcomings and conclude that they know more than their parents. When the car breaks down, they have no idea to fix it. Mom and dad always know what to do when it needs fixed. However, I'm not sure kids always appreciate that at that age. In the pursuit of independence, adolescent often rebels against the parents' attempt to guide them and rejects their views as being out of date and stupid. Mom, you don't know nothing. Mom, we don't dress that way anymore. Okay, I'm becoming my own person and I'm going to live my own way. Interestingly, once young people become more independent in their 20s and have to pay their own bills, they tend to have a greater appreciation for their parents' knowledge, right? As they grow up, they're like, oh, wait a minute, Mom, maybe you were right. A friend of mine used to always tell me the older my kids get, the smarter I get, according to them, right? So my older ones now, my ones in their 20s, definitely still now value mom's information much more than they did when they were younger. Children who are raised in families in which parents have provided opportunities for self-reliance, responsibility, self-respect. Children who are raised in overly permissive take little interest in children's behavior, and they're children who try to be their parents' friends, or parents try to be their children's friends. Children who have overly protective parents have difficulty making this transition, and they do not usually know how to assume responsibility in their own life. Okay, and what that looks like socially, I think I mentioned in previous comments or previous videos that my 17-year-old, you know, she is she's a junior actually at college, and her starting in school, this is her first year at this college, she was amazed at how little her friends knew. They didn't know how to sort the laundry. They had difficulty keeping up with their schedule, difficulty figuring out, you know, how to use the meal card. All of those things that many of her friends struggled with because they hadn't been prepared. Many of them were very, very sheltered, and suddenly, you know, mom can't fix all these things. So the same college she goes to, I'm on the mommy Facebook page. What's the parents' Facebook page? And some of the things that are posted, and I've posted some things myself, I'm not going to pretend, but some of the things that are posted are like, my son needs groceries. Can you tell me what grocery store is closest? Ask your son. Hello, he lives there. He can Google the way you can, right? Or my son's car won't start. What does he do? You know? There are things to make resources. And one of the things I really like about this college is they really, they're constantly reminding us that they're adults. They're constantly reminding. And of course, according to FERPA, you can't get any information about your child if they're over 18 without their permission. So FERPA is the Family Education Protections Right Act. So that means if a kid is under 18, then mom can come in and get their records whenever needed so. However, once they turn 18, even if you're paying the bills, you cannot have access to their records, their grades, anything like that. So as a parent, it feels like I'm letting my baby go. However, what feels good is that I prepared her. I've allowed her some independence when she was in high school. And I definitely wanted to allow them to have dependence and make mistakes in high school so I could protect them. Once they were going to college and they were far away, there was nothing I could do. But I'd much rather them learn the mistakes when they were in middle school or high school so mom could fix them, or at least help out, right? So parents feel hurt by what they perceive as a lack of appreciation and gratitude. Common areas of conflict between parents and adults or adolescents are home chores, use of time, attitude towards expenditure of money, morals, manners, choice of friends, close selection, and use of phone, dating, privileges, and use of car, right? I was listening to a sermon this morning. I'm a huge fan of T.D. Jakes, and this morning's sermon talked about entitlement and how we are raising an entitled children and adolescents that feel very much entitled. For many of us, we wanted to give our kids much more than we have, and I include myself in this, of course, and we have gone out of our way to make sure our kids had everything they needed, plus more. So now we have kids who are just expecting things. And again, in my own life, definitely my own life, my one who's in college, I'm trying to remember what it was, what incident, something came up, and I think it was our sorority fees, and they were like $1,000 a semester, and I said, how are you going to pay for that? And she said, what? The assumption was that I was going to pay for it, right? She went to get her oil changed the other day, and she comes back and she tells me that it was, like $100 because I needed to do some change in filters and things. I'm like, okay, great. And she said, oh, I put it on your credit card. There's some entitlement that mom's going to take care of things, right? So that was the title of the sermon, and really to teach us and our kids that we don't deserve anything. We work hard. A lot of people work hard. A lot of people work harder than I do, definitely, but definitely don't see the benefits that I see. So to remind our kids that hard work is important, and I would tell them now, this is mom's money. I can share with you, but don't feel like you're entitled to have mom's money, especially since I've raised you, right? Okay, so just about communication in the parents, active listening. Of course, we know those skills, and the same skills I probably talked about in the group session, they're the same ones we'll see in those session with parents, right? I statements are really important, okay? Especially my 15, 16-year-old girls that are very, very emotional, which is a very normal part of life. Between like 13 and 16, they are learning their self-identity, trying to figure out who they are, and their emotions are raw, right? You look at them some days the wrong way and they're very upset. So as parents, and parents are definitely the ones who are still role models and setting by examples, I want to make sure that I'm actively listening to what they're saying. That means reflecting their feelings. I hear you saying you're sorry, or I hear you saying you're sad, or just restating the content. That's called paraphrasing, right? So I'm not saying exactly what they said, but I'm actually saying it back in a way that I know that I understood them. Okay, so then iMessages, which we've talked about in the last Tuesday actually, and that was in my groups class. iMessages are really important. So solutions like put downs or you messages. When you come home late, I'm mad, or you do this, you do that, you do this, right? Blaming the kid. And we're all going to get defensive. If you start blaming me for stuff, even if I did or didn't, I'm going to get defensive. So what we have learned now is we're going to do I statements, right? So I statements help the child know where the parent is coming from based on that particular behavior. iMessages are non-blaming messages that communicate how the sender of the message believes the receiver is adversely affecting the sender, right? Okay, so what you're going to say is, I feel this way when you do that, okay, as opposed to you statements. Okay, so I statements are, I feel upset when you are late for dinner, right? So I'm talking about how I feel as opposed to yelling at them, you're late for dinner. So letting the child know how those makes you feel. And as we talked about in group session on Tuesday, the iMessages are great for everyone, not just for children. They're an excellent form of communication. Okay, the no-lose problem solving. Sometimes as adults, and I've seen it in many families that I've worked with, is we feel like we need to win, right? We're the adult, we're paying the bills, and this kid is dependent on me. So we start off with a win-win situation. And instead of making sure my child is growing healthy and growing strong and learning to voice their opinions appropriately, we want to win. Okay, so in families that doesn't usually work, and especially with my adolescents. So what we want to have is a no-lose problem solving, that no side won or no side lost. Okay, I always tell parents, when you don't ask a question when you know the answer. That's setting your kid up for failure. So if the kid comes home from school and the teacher's already called you and told you that, something happened, he got into a fight, he missed class, if you already know, don't ask the kid when they come in the door, well, what did you do today at school? Did something important happen today at school? If you know, don't ask them. That's setting the kid up for failure. Most of us are going to try to defend ourselves, right? Nothing happened, or we were going to lie. No. And then you're mad because the person lied when you knew the answer anyway. So don't set your kids up for failure. That's a no-lose situation. Hey, the school called me today and I understand that there's a problem here. Okay, so the goal is to fix the problem. It doesn't mean there are consequences. There need to be consequences for actions. However, we need to realize we're teaching young adults to be adults. And I want them to learn problem-solving skills, not just me telling them what to do every time. And I can tell you, the teenagers hate it when they get to choose the punishment. I'll say, why don't you come up with a punishment? What do you think is fair? Or then I'll say, these are your two choices. What do you prefer? Okay? So it lets them learn those adult skills without me always being the authoritarian parent. That's the one that's got their thumb on their head, right? So the no-lose approach to conflict setting. So conflict treats the other respectful while neither party tries to win. The basic premise is that all people have a right to have their needs met, and to that which is a conflict between two parties involved is not their needs, but the solution to those needs. Right? If there's a conflict between us, it's not that the problem is not my needs, is I need a solution. Help me out here. Okay, so he uses these 6 steps. I don't usually teach these. If you want to go back and look at these 6 steps to the no-lose method, I truly just believe it's a matter of, as an adult, setting yourself up for a position where you're trying to teach your child as opposed to punish your child. Of course, this collision of values, oh my gosh, right? I sent a meme to my children through WhatsApp, app. And it was talking about something about music and how the children of this generation just have no idea what good music is. And one of the children answered back, well, every generation says that. And that's true, right? Our parents listened to a different genre of music as we did. And now our kids are listening to a different genre than we are. So it's like, oh, what are those words? Oh my gosh, right? So teenagers think their parents' values are old-fashioned and declare they want to make decisions of their own. Okay, so we said there are 3 constructive ways that we can help resolve these conflicts. The first way a mother can influence her offspring is to model the values that she holds important. If she values honesty, she should be honest, right? If she values responsible alcohol, she should set a role model. If she values openness, she should be open. So whatever I value should match what I'm doing and not just what I say. I've heard lots of people that, yeah, I told my kids to go to church, or I sent my kids to church, but mom, if you didn't model that, then they don't know your values. Okay, I always think about, especially the adolescent age, we tell kids all the time when not to have sex, right? You're too young, don't have sex. Once you get married, don't have sex. But we never tell kids, when is it okay to have sex? So we always are busy telling them no, but let's be honest, mom and dad, you probably had sex when you were 15 and 16, maybe 18, 19. So we can't say something with our mouth when we have done something different. That's incongruent, and kids you're not modeling that. But to say, that yes, I had 16 with, you're now father, right? So you're going to be your father. And talk about not just the good and the pros and the cons. That's a more honest conversation. So what I've tried to teach my children is, and again, the Bible says to wait till they're married. I just don't think, not that I don't agree with the Bible, it's just that my children all have advanced degrees, and by the time they finish college, they're like 24, 25. So I don't think human nature can be able to wait that long. I think when in biblical times you got married when you were 15 or 16, or even 18, it's different than it is now. So what I've tried to teach my children are my values, that you really don't have sex with someone until you think that's really the person, and you really love the person. And love doesn't happen like in 2 weeks. Oh my God, mother, I love him. Right? Sometimes not even in 2 months. Oh my goodness, brother, he's the apple of my eye. We've been talking on the phone. We've been talking on Facebook, FaceTime for 2 months, and he loves me. There's nothing wrong with waiting a little bit longer. Once you begin to have sex as an adolescent, your dating habits change. And I would say that to all of my children, that in the beginning, that you're going to the movies and you're going to the park and you're doing all these great things. But once you've opened that door of sexuality, many times that's all you do. And your behaviors your modeling are then based on around the sexual activity. Okay? So again, I suggest that they, wait till they find someone special, and maybe not the one, but someone special. Okay? And again, love takes longer than 2 weeks. The second way is to act as a consultant for them. Like I said before, there are some do's and some don'ts, right? So first, a good consultant finds out whether the other person would like her consultation. So, do you like my opinion? Would you like my opinion? Okay. So sometimes I'm very guilty of that my children just want to talk and I should just reflect. And my mommy hat goes on where I just want to fix it. Okay. So if she says yes, I say, do you want my opinion? If she says yes, then I'm going to share the facts so the person I think can understand them. Okay? Then I'll leave them responsible for deciding how to follow the advice. Okay? So that way they've got my advice, I consulted, and like any consultant in the real world, they have the right to use that information or not. Okay? And the third way is for a mother to reduce tensions over value efforts in modifying her by her values. She examines the values held by her teenagers. She may realize their values have merit and may move toward values, at least toward understanding of why they hold them. So I'm learning a lot about the new generation. I'm learning a lot about the LGBTQI population and the fact that there's a range, right? That the values that I grew up with, that girls stay with boys, and if girls like girls, it stays in the closet, that's a very different value than this generation, right? So if you have teenagers, you realize that this whole kind of gender dysphoria, right? The body you were born in doesn't match how you see yourself. That's quite common and many times seen as a medical issue. Okay, so just because I was born with a vagina doesn't mean that I don't have more hormones that make me feel like a male, or more male hormones, testosterone, things like that. So really, learn from the kids, learn what their values are now. Okay. So social independence involves becoming self-directed rather than others-directed. Okay, many adolescents are others-directed because they're strongly motivated by the need for social acceptance that match the group saying is what adolescents think and do. Okay, so my kids who are others-directed are the kids many times who never had the chance to make their own decisions. They've grown up where mother and dad told them exactly what to do, exactly when to do it, when to study, when to eat, when to go to bed. So when I get to college, or I'm 18 and 19, and my friends say, let's do this, let's do that, I'm used to hearing that, right? So what I want to raise is self-directed children. And they do this because it's their own inner motivations, right? Their own inner motives. So once they leave high school, once they leave your house, the guided by others or listening to others won't help them get their homework done many times. Others are going to parties. Others are doing other things where maybe and school is not their priority. However, for the self-directed children, or adults, they've learned what they want. They learned how to get to where they want. That's starting from A to B, right? And I know how to get there. Okay, I've learned that because I've had some guidance or some consultation on the way. So we can't take these kids fresh out of high school with no real life experience and dump them in college and expect them to be okay. Economic independence. Oh my goodness. All my children couldn't wait to get jobs. Well, not all of them. One of them, I filled out the job application and they hired her and she's like, I didn't want to work. Did I ask you that? They all worked for a family-owned company that we know, so getting them jobs over the summer was not a big deal. I just called up and say, hey, I've got a kid that needs to work, and they would give them jobs. But my middle one, I think, wasn't ready quite to grow up yet, or maybe felt, I don't know. But anyway, that economic presence is really important to kids. They want to be able to go to the movies. They want to be able to do what they want to do. And they realize if they're on mom and dad's purse strings that many times they can't do that. Or even if they're on mom's wallet or mom's credit card, mom can see where they spent the money. Like, you ate at Taco Bell this 7 times this week, right? If you have your own bank account and your own money, mom doesn't know. So that allows a lot of children that financial independence. It makes you feel free. Because I now have the opportunity to do more things than I could. Okay, and in adolescence, the question is adolescent rebellion a myth? So it's not that they're rebelling against society, okay? The truth is they're trying to find their independence. And many times that collides with societal values or societal rules, okay? So a few adolescents do rebel and fit the stereotype. But most adolescents feel closer to their parents and value their parents' approval. Although family conflict is engaging in risky behavior are more common during adolescence than during the lifespan. For most families, the difficulties do not cross the open line to rebellion. Okay. Of course, we talk about their peer groups being the most important thing. They're going to listen to their peer groups. So it's very important when we have the opportunity to influence their peer groups, right? So one of the things that I tried to do with all of the kids is make sure that I had them at my house. So I knew the crowd they were hanging out with. We did, dinners with friends, come over, all the time, have dinner with friends. And that way I knew the values of those friendships. I also learned when I was coming to boys with my adolescent, the more I said no, the more she would say yes. So I learned also then to get to know the boyfriend. Okay, so and I promised myself when my kids were born that I would love whoever they chose, because I raised my kids to have good morals and good decision-making skills. So if my child loves them, and I trust my child's judgment, then I will love them. So I made that decision before I had any children, because of my mother-in-law. So what I do know now is I've experienced in that is sometimes I actually like them as well. I will love them and I'll invite them into their family and I will call them my son and daughter or my bonus son, bonus daughter. However, I've found that I like them. And that's refreshing to know. Not only have I promised to love them, but when you like them, that works out really well. But again, in the beginning, I want to make sure that I know them. Take them out to dinner, hang out with them. They love that, right? Most often at my house, I would invite them to dinner. So many of the new dating people, the new prospective people in their life were a little anxious about family dinner, right? Like, oh my gosh, I have to come and meet my mom. So their dad died about 6 years ago. Not necessarily always having dad, but definitely mom, and mom the evil eye. No, not really. Okay, so then we just want to make sure our adolescent is involved in the appropriate or healthy cliques, right? So we don't want to, again, picking their friends, that's something, or not, so getting to know their friends, and of course asking if they want the advice. If not, okay. But also helping my child to be more dependent. So helping them to understand, especially when they're in high school and you have some control of some things, right? Let them have some free time. Let them have some time where they're learning to go out and drive or learning to go to the mall with their friends, right? Because that way I know the friends at that age, because when they're 20, 21, right? When they're in college, I don't necessarily always know their friends. This chapter, of course, talks about the empowerment of homeless youth. And I'm not sure that we realize that we have so many homeless youth. Kids that were sexually abused in a home, kids that mom and dad kicked them out, literally. Kids that have grown up in foster care their entire lives. So there are lots of reasons that we have homeless teenagers. So in many big areas, you do have a lot of homeless shelters for children or for teenagers, but not necessarily where I live in a smaller city. I remember I was a social worker in South Florida, and I was the director of a teen parent program. And a girl came to school one day, and she had all of her belongings with her, and she had told me that her mother said she couldn't come back home. Okay, she had gotten pregnant and that she could not come back home. So I called the mom. Mom, of course, didn't want to hear it. So literally, it's 4 o'clock and I'm trying to find a place for this student to stay. So we called, of course, Child Protective Services, because mom can't do that. But in the meantime, while that was working out, this kid needed a place to stay. So we actually took her to one of the runaway shelters so she could spend the night, a couple of nights maybe, while it calmed down, or mom found a new way of coping. So those were really important, to make sure there are shelters or places for young people to live, okay, without necessarily always being in foster care. So Reese proposes that social workers can help homeless youth by more empowering them through 4 stages. The stages are based on the ability of youth to express themselves and their experience through biographical storytelling. That's me telling my story, okay? So stage 1 involves understanding powerlessness. Young people may be allowed to express their despair, disappointment, fear, and hope before social workers and others rush in to help them. They must get their feelings out before they can focus on any positive change, right? So we're always going to address the feelings first. If he's crying, if he's upset, I can't believe my mother did this, or he's angry, we've always got to address those feelings first. Step 2 is awareness and mutual education. So after expressing feelings, the homeless youth should be encouraged to talk about their experience and pain as they have been. Okay, so their point of view, right? I want to hear what happened from their point of view. I don't want to say, well, that can't be true. I can't believe your mother would do that. We're listening from the child's point, the adolescent's point of view. Okay, so Reese says that the stage of dawning awareness gives practitioners a chance to encourage young people to construct their stories so they begin to think of different choices for their lives. So this is actually the narrative therapy technique. Narrative therapy technique has, when people come in or clients come in, you're going to help them deconstruct the stories in their head. So if they've grown up in a home that says, I don't love you, I don't care about you, you're worth nothing, that's the tape, that's the narrative that they have in their head. So the goal of letting them share their narrative, right? So, and then deconstruct it, take it apart and look at, hey, maybe this isn't true, and then rewrite the story and put it back in there. That is what narrative therapy does, okay? So then stage 3 is dialogue and solidarity. After telling their stories, continue to exchange information and share feelings about others providing opportunities to learn and support from each other. Such disclosure can involve their rights to education, service, housecom, legal, all that good stuff. They can help each other begin to formulate plans for empowering themselves and demanding access to school resources, okay? So I've worked with many teenagers whose principals told them they couldn't come back to school because they were pregnant. And that's not true, that's not a law. So the parent, and again, where I was from, that's all I can tell you where I was from, that was not a legal mandate. So really empowering the kid to be able to graduate from high school, okay, or not be sent away to the teen parent school if they are especially so close to graduation, right? So that's part of it is fighting those, empowering their clients and advocating for them. Okay, stage 4 is action and political journey. So now that the kid has kind of got his own self-esteem, his own plan, now we got to figure out where he's going to stand. So political identity is the sense that one has right and the power to improve the improvements in life, right? I have the right for that. These effects can include improved self-esteem, more effective communication skills, better relationship with professionals and family, okay? So a couple of examples are like Sean's empowerment involves seeing the future and becoming more than a, let's try that again. Sean's empowerment involves seeing that his future could be more than an early violent death, and he gained confidence in his ability to advocate for himself with the healthcare professionals, the police, and the resource providers, So being able to say, I need this, being able to make sure the doctor hears what you need as opposed to you coming in and just saying yes to whatever the doctor says. And that's a lot for a lot of adults to do. So if we can teach that in early adolescence, that's good. Dean indicated that for the first time, he hoped that someday he would get a job and even live in a home of his own, things that were never possible before. He began to like himself more and eagerly participated in a job training program. So once we have the self-confidence, then we're more likely to try new things. Of course, looking at eating disorders and some of the other social problems that happen during adolescence. So bulimia and noversa. Bulimia is when I eat, and then I find a way to get rid of the calories. I either regurgitate them, throw them up, or many times I'll exercise ridiculous amounts. Okay, so that's bulimia. Anorexia and bulimics also look normal size. You couldn't, if you're in the cafeteria, you couldn't tell by the size of the client that they're anorexic. I'm sorry, that they're bulimic. Anorexics, on the other hand, they are tiny. They always think they're fat. That term is called egocentric. It's in sync with their ego. So many times my anorexics don't come for treatment. They come because a doctor has sent them or someone has made them come. Okay? So anorexics, anorexia nervosa means the loss of appetite due to nerves. This definition is inaccurate because people with anorexia do not actually use their appetite until the late stages of starvation. They actually do feel hungry, but they just choose not to eat. It's a matter of power and control. And it started off with our upper class families with their girls, because many times they didn't have control of anything. We're seeing it now across races and definitely across genders as well. So it's a matter, especially of an adolescent, of having some control in their lives. So the predominant feature of this disorder is excessive thinness, intensive fear of gaining weight or becoming fat, a distorted body image, right? And then amenorrhea, which means that their period stops because they're so thin. Okay. So then looking at some of the causes and the treatments of some of these. So a cause for eating disorder, like I said, so there are lots of factors. However, some bulimics and compulsive overeaters may be genetically predisposed to this disorder. So just as we say that alcoholism can be passed down, many of our mental illnesses can be passed down. So if I grew up in a family with other addictions, right, then this may be a genetic piece that I'm more likely to whatever behavior I do, I'm going to do it to the utmost. I can't stop it because I'm addicted to it, okay? They tend to compare themselves with others and usually conclude, I'm not good enough, right? A significant number of anorexics and bulimics have been victimized by molestation, rape, or incest. So I had no power, but I'm looking for a place where I have some power. Okay. They both have some similarities. Both were likely to be brought up in a middle-class, upwardly mobile families where their mothers are over-involved in their lives. Fathers are preoccupied with work outside the home. For the most part, bulimics and anorexics were good kids, eager to comply, eager to achieve order, to obtain the love and approval of others, right? That's what they're working for. So then what they find is, again, I want to control something. On the other hand, there are other eating disorders who were raised by parents who had obsessive concerns with criticism and rejection. I've heard parents who, from very young, they've told kids, don't eat that, you'll get fat, don't eat that, you'll get fat, and criticize them when they're eating dessert. Okay, so that's not a healthy way to raise our children. The healthy way is, as it said before, is to model, right? And modeling our children looks like eating healthy yourself. And not necessarily, always being on a diet, but learning to eat healthy as a part of your family life, so your kids learn that as well. Okay. The impact of social forces. Okay. So of course on TV, everything, the girls are so thin and beautiful. On the magazines, they're size 0 and they're thin and beautiful, right? And of course, they all look that way in real life, right? They're beautiful. There's no, what's it called? Affects added, no shading, no changing. Of course there is, right? But as adolescents, I see myself wanting to be that girl. So in order to be that girl, I think I need to be very thin, okay? So eating disorders have been an epidemic in the United States for the past 50 years, okay? Weight gain products and breast enhancements were popular because they were purchased by thin women who wanted to look like Marilyn Monroe, remember, very busty, okay? So however, the norms have changed, okay? So now we're looking at a set point of being thin as being attractive as opposed to being heavy and busty. Of course, treatment definitely includes medical treatment. In that facility, they often get group treatment as well and family treatment. Okay. Some emotional behavior problems. So many times we treat these with a couple of models. The medical model suggests there's something wrong. I go to the doctor because I'm sad, depressed, angry. He treats me for that, and then, I'm better. That's the medical model, okay? Okay, the other model is the application of theory to a client situation, assessing the models. So using like rational emotive behavior therapy, or even some CBT, these are by Ellis, you'll see some change. So the event happens, right? And then my boyfriend breaks up with me. That's the event, pretend that. And the self-talk I tell myself is, they're usually negative. I'm too skinny, I'm too fat, I'm too grumpy, whatever. I'm blaming myself for the situation. So as I blame myself, then my emotions usually are upsetting. That's where my tears come from, right? Because he left me and I'm fat and ugly and none of those things are working out for me. Okay, so what Ella said though, is that it's actually not the event that's the problem, it's the self-talk. And that then causes emotional consequences, okay? So what he said is if we can then change those emotional consequences, dispute your self-talk, the talk yourself, telling yourself, right? Then I can create a new, dispute those, and I can have a new, it says a different view of myself, a more effective emotions. Okay, that's the ABCDE of REBT. Of course, we know that in our poor communities, we have more, and not just black and brown, but even our poor white families, there's more issues with crime. Okay, and sometimes it's related to basic needs, right? If I don't have enough money to get lunch and I'm hungry, then I'm going to steal something to get hungry. Or my friends have a car and I want a car, so I'm going to try to steal a car. Some of them are just ways of rebelling, and many of them I think are just cries for attention. Okay, someone recognized the fact that I come from a broken family and I'm home and I'm homeless or I'm poor and I need something. Okay. So again, some macro solutions to delinquent care is not to blame the kids, right? To invest money and time into the community. Okay, so many of the kids will join a gang because they need to feel they belong to something or belong to somebody. Someone's got their back. And especially if we see a single mother who's trying really, really hard and she's trying to put food on the table and make sure the kids eat, they may not be there for their kid, right? That's Maslow's hierarchy of needs. I'm at the bottom and I'm trying to get there, right? I'll show you Maslow. Okay, so Maslow's needs start from the bottom. So these are my deficiency areas, right? The D level. So psychological needs, safety needs, belonging and love needs, and then also my cognitive needs, right? Those are the deficits that I have. So if mother is down here trying to make sure their kids are safe, they have a place to live, all of those things, then many times she's not able to do her own cognitive needs or even her children's because she's still down here. So if there was money put into systems, maybe where mom didn't have to work so much, or where the community provided safe spaces for children to go, that would definitely put a decrease in our gang violence, right? They're not these, yes, I realize there are gangs that are very dangerous, so let me say that. But what we see is kids are recruited as young as elementary school, and they'll be the kids that mom or dad are not around to say no to that or reinforce some rules. Okay, so that's Maslow. my screen. I have so many open. I'm trying to find my screen. Maybe I jumped out of my screen. Okay, I'm just going to follow up and end with chapter 8 and go back to that. Okay, so the last part of the book talks about groups. And if you're in my groups class, you have already heard this information. If not, you will hear this information. So the groups class is a requirement to graduate from the program. So you'll learn more of that in that class. Okay. Okay. So that is our end of chapter 8. Thank you guys for tuning in, and I hope you found this helpful. Remember to keep up with your assignments, guys, in your Mind Tap, your Cengage space. Okay. And remember in your responses to provide meaningful responses to 2 different peers on a weekly basis. It's a pleasure teaching you. Dr. Pam is out. Bye, guys.